Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Juan's World, and I'm going to talk about a Khmer wedding I went to on Sunday, and this may be fairly convoluted for a number of reasons. One of them is that I wasn't always able to capture video, so some of it will be stills, but there's I think some fairly interesting videos in here too. And a lot of music. So the event began, or at least theoretically began, at 6:30 on Sunday, but I got there to this what's called a wedding hall. It's a very, very big permanent structure and can hold 2 weddings at a time adjacently. It's called Premier Wedding Center. Not too far from where I live, but I did have to take a tuk-tuk because I didn't want to ride my bicycle with a suit on. So when I got there were quite a few guests already there. They must have got there at least 6 o'clock. And we're just sitting around, and the tables were all set as they are at a Chinese wedding, with a bowl, a plate, some chopsticks, and then snacks in the center of the table. But I noticed one big difference with China: there are no cigarettes on the table. In Chinese weddings, everybody smokes, and they're handed out cigarettes right at the beginning. No smoking in the hall in Cambodia. So towards 7 o'clock, all the people who had entered the hall and sat down, and in some cases they were given coffee or tea or various drinks, and then they had the snacks and everything. About maybe 6:45, we were each given what was nominally a gift. It was not our gift. It was provided by the center. It was a golden or gold-colored plate or stand, and on it were various things, depending on what you got. Mine was some Thai eggplants at the base, and then a cone of longans going up, and then a rose on top. There are various others you can see here in this picture. And then we all trooped outside and lined up in a double line procession to formally enter the wedding center. And we gave our gifts to people who were standing there receiving them, and we were given a small gift, a little red pouch and an envelope, and in the pouch was 2 oranges and 2 little caramels, and in the envelope were 2,000 real notes. So we were fated with our own gifts. And then the formal ceremony began. So after the procession and everything's been put on the stage in front of what are the grandparents of the bride and groom, they have what's called the ring ceremony. Now, it's not the same as exchanging rings in a wedding in the West. These rings are ceremonial rings, and this is a one version of blessing the union, ostensibly by the grandparents. But this is preceded by a dance and a song, the dance by two women and a song by a man, with a band actually in the background, which for quite a while I didn't realize was there, because the music is piped into the room by very loud amplifiers and big speakers at the front, which I thought was just piped in. And eventually, though, I happened to turn around and there's this band, sort of not at the back really, but to the side, and you can see here they're made up of various traditional Khmer instruments. And this dance is basically like showing off the gifts. The women will pick up an orange or a dragon fruit or whatever. And what they did was they made up a basket. And having made up that basket, they then danced off the stage, and they then performed the ring ceremony, where the grandparents, after they've met each other formally, then greet the bride and groom and present them with the rings. It's not like a Western ring ceremony. These are not the rings they're going to wear. These are ceremonial rings. So it's a symbolic gesture. And that concludes the first event, and then 4 monks came in for what's called the blessing ceremony. And the blessing ceremony can take place either the night before, and originally I was told it was going to be the night before, and I was all prepared for that, and then my student who had invited me said, no, the blessing ceremony is going to be part of the wedding. So the 4 monks came in and sat down, and then first the groom came and did his various kneeling and honor to the monks, and then the bride, and then they both did it, and then they sat down, and the monks chanted in Pali, which nobody understands except the monks, but that's traditional. The Theravada Buddhism in Cambodia uses Pali for its formal ceremonies. So that went on for about 25 minutes. I mean, it was quite extensive, and the grandparents, the parents, and the bride and groom were all seated opposite the monks as they were chanting. And eventually they threw petals over the couple, and then that was concluded. And then they stripped the stage again and performed what's called the hair cutting ceremony. And they have a set of comb, scissors, and mirror, which they give various couples. The grandparents go first, and then the parents, and then the aunts and uncles, and who knows what else. I mean, it goes on for a very long time. And each one of them, they kind of pretend. They don't really actually cut their hair, but they pretend and comb it, and then they show them how it looks in the mirror. And this is meant to cut away all bad stuff and start everything new and fresh. And this is followed again. They have to set the stage. They have to clear away the stuff, and they perform what's called passing of the blessing, and this involves candles. The various family members are seated in a circle, and there's a master of ceremonies who's sometimes saying what's going on. But basically he's lighting candles and he gives them to the couple, who then pass them around in a circle. I think 3 times, but I'm not sure. Wasn't counting, I was trying to pay attention to video. And they pass around, I think it's 4 candles, and every time you receive a candle, if you're in the circle, you wave your hand over the candle and then pass it on clockwise. So it goes around and around and around, and lots of photos being taken. And one of the things I also want to mention is that during all of this, I mean, this is taking hours. I mean, by this point, we've already been in the center doing stuff for 3.5 hours. And most of the people are not paying attention. And this is something that's not uncommon in Southeast Asian performances in general, whether it be dances or the shadow play or weddings. There's a lot of people there are just kind of chatting among themselves and sometimes paying attention, sometimes not. And a lot of it's very hard to see. If you look in this photo, you'll see that, you know, I was seated pretty much in the front, and there's all these camera crew, you know, blocking my view. I had to move around to get a good shot of a photo or a video. And in the hall, people are just eating. You know, like some of them are having lunch, even though it's not lunchtime, because they're going to leave before the end of the ceremony. Or maybe at the very end, but before the actual lunch begins. Not, I mean, it's their presence there is what's important, not that they're actually paying attention. A lot of the time, in between events, they're taking photographs of themselves. You know, there's a big bower where they can all line up or whatever, and going in and out, not particularly showing direct attention to what's going on. So then the final event is actually 2 parts. The first part is called the knot tying, which was interesting to me. Metaphorically, I said to my student who invited me that in English we call getting married tying the knot, but we don't actually have a knot, but here we do. The bride and groom are now in their last costume, actually emulating a king and queen, very, very smart royal costumes. And they're seated in front of their main relatives, and 2 by 2 people come up and take a thread out of a box, and one on the bride's side, one on the groom's side, ties the thread to their wrist and gives them an envelope with money in it. And it's not the envelope that's in the invitation that I got. The invitation was very formal, and it had the order of the ceremony in it, and a couple of invitations, and this envelope with my name on it. But that was not the one that I was giving this time. My student had got other envelopes which he'd actually gone to the mall to buy, and but in the end what we did was we took our money out of the envelopes that we had been given at the door and put new money in these envelopes, and then give them to the to the groom, and then tie the knot, and then sit down and have our photographs taken with them. And this took a long time because there were so many people who did this. And then to conclude things, the bride's hair was let down. Like most people, when they go to anything special, the women always have their hair tied up in a knot or a bun, or they don't have it flowing free. Some do, but most of them don't. The bride certainly didn't. But it was let down for this ceremony, and then what happens is that she processes around the stage with the groom holding what is a very short train. It's not like a wedding dress train that you see in formal Western weddings. This was it was really short, but she leads him around 3 times, and that's pretty much it. There was one other ceremony that was off to the side, which I didn't understand at all. As you will have heard throughout the ceremonies, there's this one guy with a small gong which he bashes periodically, well, this ceremony was off to the side at a table that was set with various things, some food and some drinks, and there were 2 gongs, and I'm gonna have to ask what this was. It may have been like setting the tables or something like that. But what they did most of the time was they took these cans of Fanta and poured them into wine glasses. Don't know. It's a mystery to me. So then everything concluded, and we had lunch. And so I sat down with my student and his family for, a decent meal, but not like a Chinese meal. I mean, like the Chinese wedding meals are so extensive. I mean, 7, 9 courses, and each of the courses has 3 or 4 dishes, on and on and on. This was just one course with about 3 or 4 dishes. There was a noodle dish, some rice, of course, some meat, beef, I think, and a fish soup in a Mongolian fire pot. So nice, and I enjoyed it, but not lavish. And then after that, we all went home, but there was another event to happen in the evening at 5 o'clock, a dinner. So it was as if it was like a Chinese wedding, where the first half of the wedding is the actual ceremony, and in China they're all in Chinese traditional costume, and there's all kinds of stuff that they do, but it's only for the families, and they sign the papers, so they get married, and that's one day, and then the next day, in the evening or late afternoon, people are invited to dinner. But this was all on one day, and so in the morning it was all very traditional Khmer stuff, and then in the evening the bride and groom were actually dressed in Western bridal gear. The bride had a really big, meringue white dress, and the groom was in a tuxedo. But they just took pictures at the beginning and then disappeared. And the rest of the evening was devoted to wedding singers with a Western style band of violin, bass, guitar, and so forth. Just lots and lots of pop Khmer love songs, very, very loud, on and on and on and on. And a dinner that was, again, not particularly lavish. Some vegetables and noodles and rice, of course. Shrimp, big shrimp. Some nice, and alcohol, like beer at all the tables, and I don't think at every table, but certainly at ours, was a big liter bottle of Chivas Regal brandy, which everyone was drinking with club soda. But I couldn't bear the noise. I made it to 8 o'clock and then I disappeared. So that's my wedding, and I think I'll maybe go to another if I'm invited. But I'll know better now how to intrude into the space or ignore people as necessary. But one of my biggest problems was that no one really spoke English except for my student, and he kept disappearing. He left me alone for long periods of time, and nobody else spoke any English. Once in a while, people would come and say one or two words to me, but I was mostly left alone for much of the ceremony. So I'm either going to have to brush up my Khmer, or or just not pay so much attention. So that's a Khmer wedding. If you like this video, please tell your friends, please like, please subscribe. I'm not sure when I'm going to be back again, but I hope you have a good week, and I hope you prosper in the coming days and months to come.